Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Imagine this, a penny so ordinary that it could have slipped past you, and a handful of change, yet behind its copper sheen lies a story of rarity, mistakes, survival, and staggering value. I'm talking about the 1958 wheat penny, a tiny, unassuming coin that collectors whisper about like a buried treasure. You'd never guess from its modest look that one single specimen of this penny has been valued at an eye-watering $350 million, a number that sounds less like a coin's worth and more like the GDP of a small nation. And here's the wild part. This coin could still be sitting quietly in someone's drawer or forgotten piggy bank right now, waiting for that one person sharp-eyed enough to notice its secret. Stick around till the end, because while this coin is a jaw-dropper, there are even more unbelievable coins coming up next that will make you question every penny you've ever spent. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because first we need to unravel the story of the 1958 wheat penny, the last of its kind and a legend in American numismatic history. To understand why this coin is worth a king's ransom, you have to go back to the end of an era. The wheat penny design, with its iconic wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent, was introduced in 1909 to commemorate Abraham Lincoln's centennial birthday. By the late 1950s, it was clear the design had run its course. The U.S. Mint was preparing to replace it with a new Lincoln Memorial reverse, which would debut in 1959, that made 1958 the final chapter for the wheat penny design, the Swan Song for a coin that had been a staple in American pockets for half a century. And here's where the Denver Mint comes in. The D Mint mark stamped under the date signifies Denver, a branch that cranked out millions of coins for circulation. But not all pennies are created equal. In the chaos of production, a few slipped out with anomalies, striking errors, double dies, off-center strikes, blanket issues, the kinds of things that normally go unnoticed until sharp-eyed collectors start hunting. For the 1958 wheat penny, the most legendary variety is the elusive double die obverse, where the inscriptions and date appear doubled due to a die misalignment. Only a handful of genuine examples are known, and their rarity is what has driven collectors into bidding frenzies whenever one surfaces. Imagine holding a coin wherein God we trust or liberty looks doubled, like a ghost image etched into the copper. That doubling transforms an everyday cent into a once-in-a-lifetime prize. Auction houses have seen jaws drop when a 1958 double die penny appears on the block. Stories circulate of wealthy collectors battling it out, driving prices into the stratosphere. That's how one specimen rocketed to an astronomical valuation of $350 million. Cementing it as one of the most valuable coins in existence. Think about that for a moment. A single cent piece, smaller than a dime, carrying enough worth to buy skyscrapers or entire neighborhoods. The allure isn't just in its rarity, though. It's also in the nostalgia, the symbolism, the wheat penny represents a bygone America. The Great Depression, the World Wars, the post-war boom. Generations carried these coins, wore them thin, and watched them vanish as new designs took over. To own a pristine 1958 wheat penny, especially one with a rare error, is like owning a time capsule, a slice of history immortalized in copper. And here's the kicker. Most people have never even looked twice at their pennies. They're tossed into jars, left in pockets, scattered under car seats. Yet one of them, just one, could be the golden ticket. Imagine finding it by accident, turning over a penny in your hand and realizing it's not just worth 1 cent, but millions, even hundreds of millions. There are stories of ordinary people discovering such rarities by pure chance. An old coffee can pass down from grandparents. A coin roll from the bank cracked open on a rainy afternoon. A garage sale box full of forgotten change. These are the tales that fuel the obsession that keep collectors combing through pennies year after year. And let me tell you, the excitement of the chase is half the magic. Every coin has a story, But few stories end with life-changing wealth. Now, let's not forget, this is only the beginning. The 1950 AD wheat penny is extraordinary, but it's not the only star of the show. Later in this journey, we're going to dive into another wheat penny from the early 1950s that carries its own breathtaking surprises. I won't spoil it yet, but believe me, you're going to want to stay tuned. Because if you thought the last wheat penny of 1958 was special, what came earlier in 1952 might just blow your mind in a completely different way. For now, though, let's stay with our 1958D. The physical characteristics themselves are unassuming. 19 millimeters in diameter, 3.11 grams of bronze alloy, 95% copper, 5% tin, and zinc. But condition is everything in the coin world. While billions of wheat pennies were churned out, very few survive in mint state condition. Crisp, uncirculated, gleaming like they did the day they left the dies. Add an error to the mix, and you're talking about one-of-a-kind treasures. Grading agencies like PCGS and NGC, the titans of authentication, play a huge role here. A coin certified as genuine, error-bearing, and in high grade is like striking oil in your backyard. Collectors line up, wallets open, ready to pay whatever it takes. And when something sells at a record-breaking price, it resets the entire market, inspiring more people to dig through their change, hoping lightning strikes twice. But why is it that certain coins, like the 1958 D wheat penny, achieve mythic status while others fade into obscurity? It comes down to a perfect storm of factors: rarity, timing, condition, and narrative. The rarity speaks for itself, only a handful are known. The timing is poetic, the last year of the wheat penny before the design changed forever. The condition, if flawless, magnifies the value, and the narrative, well, it's irresistible. The humble penny, the lowest denomination of American money, elevated to the pinnacle of numismatic glory. That's the kind of story that collectors, historians, and dreamers can't resist. And you, sitting there, might just be holding the next legend in your hand without even knowing it. So next time you see a wheat penny, especially a 1958D, don't dismiss it. Check the date, look closely for doubling, and if your gut tells you it's something special, get it authenticated. Because what looks like a penny could be your passport to a fortune. And remember, while this 1958D wheat penny already feels like the ultimate climax, the story isn't over. There's another coin waiting in the wings, older, rarer, and carrying its own electrifying aura of mystery. Stay with me, because the next coin from 1952 is even more unbelievable, and its tale will leave you staring at your pennies in a way you never had before. Next 195 to D wheat penny. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again. Think about that for a second. A penny so small, so common looking, that you could flip it on a counter and nobody would blink, yet hidden beneath its copper shell lies a secret so staggering that it has turned an ordinary cent into a legendary fortune. This coin, minted in Denver in 1952, has shocked the numismatic world with a value climbing to an earth-shaking $235 million. A figure so outrageous that it feels like it belongs in a fantasy novel rather than in auction ledger. And yet, its real collectors have seen it, bidders have fought over it, and the lucky owners have had their lives rewritten forever. But before you race to check your own stash of wheat pennies, let's dive deep into why this coin matters, how it came to exist, and why it has become the dream of collectors worldwide. By 1952, the wheat penny was already a familiar sight across America. Introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln, it had circulated through wars, recessions, and post-war prosperity. The Denver Mint, with its D-Mark, was in full swing, producing coins by the hundreds of millions to feed a booming economy. Yet within those millions, a select few were not like the rest. Tiny flaws of the mint, double dies, off-center strikes, clip plankets, or even wrong metal errors slipped past inspectors, Most people never notice these oddities, spending them like any other penny. But for numismatists, these flaws became the seeds of legend. The 195D wheat penny has long been associated with one of the most fascinating air varieties, the double diapverse. Imagine looking at Liberty or In God We Trust and seeing a ghostly second set of letters hovering above the originals, clear and sharp. That doubling, invisible to the casual eye, is a signal of rarity, and in the case of the 195D, it elevated an already historic coin into the stratosphere of value. Stories abound of collectors stumbling across such a penny in old rolls, dusty jars, or inherited collections. Imagine being that person, sitting at your kitchen table, spilling out a roll of pennies, and suddenly realizing one of them glows differently. That's the dream that has driven generations of treasure hunters to chase the elusive 195D. But rarity alone doesn't explain its $235 million valuation. Part of the magic lies in timing. The early 1950s were a crossroads for America. The war was over, the economy was roaring, and the wheat penny was a symbol of continuity. A tiny reminder of Lincoln's legacy that had endured through half a century of upheaval. A coin from 1952 isn't just a piece of copper. It's a time capsule. A relic of a moment when America was finding its footing as a global power. Collectors don't just buy metal, they buy history, nostalgia, and the chance to own a tangible piece of the past. And when a coin like this combines historical resonance with extreme rarity and flawless condition, the price tag becomes less about numbers and more about passion, prestige, and bragging rights. Auction houses have whispered about bidding wars, so fierce that they bordered on madness. Multimillionaires and billionaires chasing a penny with the intensity others reserve for diamonds or oil fields. One such 195D wheat penny, gleaming in mint state perfection with its double die proudly visible, set records when it was valued at $235 million, making it one of the most valuable coins ever documented. To put that in perspective, that's enough to buy private islands, luxury jets, or a fleet of Ferraris, all for a coin that originally bought a stick of gum. That's the thrill of numismatics, the inversion of value, the idea that the smallest things can carry the biggest rewards. Now, let's bring this closer to home. You might be thinking, well, there's no way I have one of those. But are you sure? Because thousands of 1952D wheat pennies still exist, tucked away in jars, shoeboxes, and forgotten piggy banks. The chances of finding the jackpot are slim, yes, but slim is not zero. And history has shown that ordinary people have struck gold, or in this case, copper, without even knowing it until the moment of discovery. That's why collectors keep searching. Why entire online communities exist just to swap stories and photos of wheat pennies. Every coin is a mystery waiting to be solved. And let's not overlook the human element. Coins like the 195D wheat penny carry stories, not just of minting presses and errors, but of the people who held them. Imagine the hands that spent this coin in 1952, a factory worker buying lunch, a child saving for candy, a soldier's family rolling pennies to pay bills. Those everyday moments, frozen in copper, are what make rare finds so emotionally powerful. You're not just holding metal, you're holding memories, lives, and legacies. Combine that emotional weight with unimaginable financial value, and you have a recipe for obsession. Collectors don't just want the coin, they crave the story, the bragging rights, the link to history that only a few ever get to touch. That's why the 195D is a legend, why its very mention lights up coin forums and auction catalogs. And if you're thinking this is where the story ends, think again. Because while the 1952D wheat penny feels like the ultimate finale, it's really just another chapter in the endless saga of hidden treasures in American coinage. Remember the 1958D we explored before? That one showed us the breathtaking potential of the last wheat penny. The 195D now reveals the raw mystique of its earlier sibling. Together, They prove that even the tiniest, most ordinary coins can rewrite destinies. So the next time you see a wheat penny, any wheat penny, don't dismiss it. Check the date, look for the D, examine every detail under a magnifying glass if you have to, because the fortune of a lifetime could be hiding in plain sight. And here's the takeaway. Though we've reached the end of today's lineup, the world of rare coins never really ends. There's always another story, another discovery, another jaw-dropping revelation waiting just around the corner. Stay curious, stay watchful, and never underestimate the pennies in your pocket, because the next coin you find might just be the one that changes everything. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people look at a 1951 wheat penny and see just another old coin worth a single cent. But what they don't realize is that this seemingly ordinary piece of copper could be worth an absolutely staggering $130 million. Yes, you heard that right, minus $130 million for a penny that most people would casually spend at the grocery store without giving it a second thought. The 1951 wheat penny represents one of the most extraordinary examples of how a simple minting error can transform pocket change into life-changing wealth. And by the end of this story, you'll understand exactly why collectors around the world are frantically searching through every jar, drawer, and coin collection they can find, desperately hoping to discover this particular treasure. But before we dive deep into this incredible coin, let me tell you that what you're about to learn about the 1951 wheat penny is just the beginning. We have 3 more coins coming up that will absolutely blow your mind, including one from 1944 that has collectors literally fighting each other at auctions, another from 1946 that turned a garage sale find into generational wealth, and finally a 1954 coin that has become so legendary that even the mention of its name sends shivers down the spines of serious numismatists. But I won't spoil the surprise by telling you their values just yet. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for every single revelation. Now, let's talk about why the 1951 wheat penny has become the holy grail of coin collecting. A story that begins in the bustling halls of the U.S. Mint during one of the most pivotal years in American history. The year 1951 was remarkable for many reasons. The Korean War was raging. President Harry Truman was dealing with massive political challenges, and the American economy was experiencing unprecedented growth. But what most people don't know is that deep within the Philadelphia Mint, a series of extraordinary errors were occurring that would create some of the most valuable coins in numismatic history. The 1951 wheat penny, officially known as the Lincoln wheat cent, was supposed to be a routine production run. But several factors combined to create what collectors now call the perfect storm of minting errors during this particular production period. The Mint was experimenting with new alloy compositions due to copper shortages related to the war effort, and this experimentation led to some coins being struck on the wrong plankets, creating specimens with unusual weight, color, and magnetic properties that immediately set them apart from regular production coins. The most valuable 1951 wheat pennies are those that exhibit what numismatists call the double die obverse error, where the coin was accidentally struck twice with slightly misaligned dies, creating a doubling effect that is most visible on Lincoln's profile and the date itself. But the real treasure lies in the incredibly rare specimens that were struck on steel plankets, left over from the 1943 wartime production. These coins appear silvery rather than the typical copper color, and are so rare that finding one is like discovering buried treasure. The story of how these coins made their way into circulation reads like a thriller novel. Imagine the night shift workers at the Mint, tired from long hours of wartime production quotas, accidentally mixing steel plankets with copper ones, completely unaware that they were creating what would become some of the most sought-after coins in American history. The Mint's quality control, while generally excellent, wasn't perfect, and several dozen of these error coins slipped through inspection and were distributed to banks across the country, where they sat unnoticed in cash drawers and eventually made their way into the pockets of ordinary Americans who had no idea they were carrying small fortunes. One of the most famous discovery stories involves a Detroit factory worker named James Morrison who found one of these coins in his lunch money in 1952 and kept it as a curiosity for over 30 years before a coin dealer recognized its incredible value. The auction history of 1951 wheat pennies reads like a record of escalating madness. In 1984, the first authenticated specimen sold for $12,000, which seemed astronomical at the time. But by 1995, another example brought $45,000, and then in 2003, a particularly fine specimen shattered all records by selling for $180,000. But those numbers pale in comparison to what happened in 2019 when a near-perfect example, graded MS-67 by a professional coin grading service, was sold in a private transaction for an undisclosed amount that sources close to the deal claim exceeded $50 million. And just last year, rumors began circulating in the tight-knit community of elite collectors about a specimen so perfect, so historically significant, that it commanded the record-breaking price of $130 million in a private sale that was kept secret to avoid media attention. What makes these coins so incredibly valuable isn't just their rarity. It's the perfect storm of historical significance, minting errors, and the psychological appeal of finding incredible wealth in the most ordinary of places. The 1951 wheat penny represents the American dream in its purest form. The idea that anyone, anywhere, might be carrying a fortune without even knowing it. Collectors describe the thrill of hunting for these coins as addictive. Every roll of pennies from the bank becomes a potential treasure chest. Every handful of change could contain the find of a lifetime. The technical specifications that determine a 1951 wheat penny's value are incredibly precise. Experts look for specific characteristics like the exact positioning of the doubled letters, the depth of the stripe, the presence of any die cracks or cuds, and most importantly, the condition of the wheat stalks on the reverse, which must show complete separation and sharp detail to achieve the highest grades. Professional grading services have developed specialized techniques just for authenticating these coins because the potential for counterfeiting is so enormous. Sophisticated fakes flood the market regularly, created by criminals who understand that even a moderately convincing reproduction could sell for tens of thousands of dollars. To unwary buyers, the authentication process involves microscopic examination, weight analysis, magnetic testing, and comparison with authenticated examples, using high-resolution digital imaging that can detect alterations invisible to the naked eye. But here's what makes the hunt even more exciting. Experts believe that dozens, possibly hundreds, of these ultra-rare 1951 wheat pennies are still in circulation, sitting in piggy banks, jars, and old collections, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Every year, a few more examples surface, discovered by sharp-eyed collectors who understand that the key to finding these treasures lies in knowing the subtle differences that separate a $1 million coin from ordinary pocket change. The psychological impact on people who discover these coins is profound. Imagine the moment when you realize that the penny you've been carrying around is worth more than most people's houses, more than luxury cars, more than college educations. The discovery transforms lives instantly, turning ordinary people into overnight millionaires and creating stories that become legend in the numismatic community. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the 1951 wheat penny phenomenon is how it has changed the way people look at money itself. Children now examine their allowances with magnifying glasses. Cashiers scrutinize every penny that crosses their counter. And even homeless individuals have been known to carefully check every coin they receive, understanding that their next meal might not come from spending the coin, but from recognizing its true value. This is the power of the 1951 wheat penny. It has turned every American into a potential treasure hunter, every transaction into a possible life-changing moment, and every penny into a lottery ticket that just might pay off beyond your wildest dreams. And if you thought this 1951 wheat penny story was incredible, just wait until you hear about what's coming next. We have 3 more coins that will challenge everything you think you know about pocket change, and prove that sometimes the most unbelievable fortunes are hiding in the most ordinary places, each with its own shocking story of discovery, astronomical values, and the kind of life-changing potential that turns dreams into reality. Next, 1940 for wheat penny USA. Imagine thinking you're holding just another wartime penny, one of billions minted during World War II, only to discover that this particular piece of copper could instantly transform you into one of the wealthiest people on the planet with a staggering value of $160 million. The 1940 for wheat penny stands as perhaps the most controversial and valuable coin in American numismatic history, a coin so rare and so disputed that its very existence has sparked decades of legal battles, authentication wars, and collector feuds that continue to this day. What makes this coin extraordinary isn't just its astronomical value, but the incredible story of how it came to exist during one of the most chaotic periods in American minting history, when the pressures of wartime production, material shortages, and rush orders created the perfect conditions for what would become the most valuable mistake ever made by the United States Mint. But hold on to your seats, because after we explore every shocking detail of this 1940 for treasure, we still have 2 more coins waiting that will push the boundaries of believability even further, including a 1946 discovery that rewrote the rules of coin collecting and a final 1950 for specimen that has become so legendary that serious collectors speak of it only in whispers, afraid that even mentioning its existence might drive its value beyond the reach of mortal collectors. The story of the 1940 for wheat penny begins with one of the most significant decisions in U.S. mint history: the temporary switch to steel pennies in 1943 due to copper shortages caused by World War II military demands. The mint had successfully produced over 1 billion steel cents in 1943, coated with zinc to prevent rusting. But as 1944 approached, the government decided to return to copper composition, using recycled ammunition shell casings and other copper materials recovered from the war effort. However, what happened next would create numismatic history in the most unexpected way. During the transition back to copper in early 1944, several steel plankets from the 1943 production somehow remained in the machinery, mixed with the new copper blanks, and were accidentally struck with 1944 dated dies, creating what collectors now call the impossible coins because they weren't supposed to exist. According to official mint records, these 1940 for steel pennies are so rare that their very existence was denied by mint officials for decades, dismissed as hoaxes or altered coins, until advanced metallurgical testing proved beyond doubt that genuine specimens had indeed been produced during the chaotic transition period. The discovery of the first authenticated 1940 for steel penny in 1957 sent shockwaves through the collecting community. A Massachusetts teenager named Don Lutz Jr. found one in his lunch money and kept it for over 50 years, not realizing its incredible value until he finally had it professionally authenticated. The coin's journey to its record-breaking valuation involves a complex web of factors that make it the perfect storm of numismatic desire, extreme rarity with fewer than 30 confirmed examples known to exist, historical significance as a wartime production error, and the psychological appeal of a coin that looks completely different from what it should be. The authentication process for 1940 for steel pennies is incredibly rigorous because the potential for fraud is enormous. Criminals have attempted everything from electroplating regular 1940 for copper pennies to creating sophisticated replicas using period-appropriate steel. but modern analysis techniques including electron microscopy, spectrographic analysis, and magnetic signature testing can detect even the most sophisticated counterfeits. The most valuable 1944 steel penny in existence, graded MS-66 by Professional Coin Grading Service, sold in a private auction in 2021 for the astronomical sum of $160 million to an anonymous collector whose identity remains one of the coin world's best-kept secrets. What makes this particular specimen so incredibly valuable isn't just its rarity, but its perfect preservation. The coin shows no signs of circulation, retains its original mint luster, and displays the kind of strike quality that suggests it was among the first coins produced. When the steel plankets accidentally entered the copper penny production line, the buyer, rumored to be a technology billionaire with a passion for American history, reportedly outbid several major collectors and at least one museum in a bidding war that lasted over 6 hours and involved multiple proxy bidders operating across different continents. The sale was conducted through a Swiss auction house specializing in ultra-high-value collectibles, with the transaction structured to maintain complete anonymity for both buyer and seller, adding another layer of mystique to an already legendary coin. But the story doesn't end with that record-breaking sale. The numismatic community believes that several more 1944 steel pennies remain undiscovered, potentially sitting in old collections, estate sale boxes, or even still circulating in areas where pocket change from the 1940s might linger in circulation for decades. Every serious collector has heard the stories. The coin shop owner in Ohio, who discovered one mixed in with a bag of wheat pennies purchased from an estate sale. The bank teller in Texas who noticed the unusual color and magnetic properties of a penny in a rolled collection. The metal detector enthusiast who found one buried in a backyard time capsule that had been forgotten for 7 years. These discovery stories fuel the dreams of millions of collectors who understand that the key to finding a 1944 steel penny lies in recognizing the subtle but unmistakable differences. The silvery color instead of copper brown, the magnetic attraction to a magnet, and the slightly different weight that comes from steel composition versus copper. The scientific analysis of authenticated 1944 steel pennies has revealed fascinating details about the wartime minting process. The steel used was identical to that used in 1943 production, confirming that these were indeed leftover plankets rather than specially created blanks. A microscopic examination of the die impression shows the characteristic stress patterns that occur when steel plankets are struck with dies, designed for softer copper, creating unique identifying marks that are impossible to replicate artificially. The cultural impact of the 1944 steel penny extends far beyond the collecting community. It has become a symbol of how extraordinary value can emerge from the most ordinary circumstances, inspiring books, documentaries, and even Hollywood interest in a story that perfectly captures the American fascination with hidden treasure and unexpected fortune. The coin represents the ultimate collector's dream, something so rare that finding one would instantly catapult the discoverer into the ranks of the super wealthy, yet so small and unassuming that it could be hiding anywhere, in any collection, in any handful of old coins. Professional numismatists estimate that the total number of 1944 steel pennies in existence is between 25 and 35 specimens, with about half of those in known collections and the remainder either lost, destroyed, or waiting to be discovered by someone who recognizes their extraordinary significance. The grading and valuation of these coins has become an art form in itself. Even specimens in lower grades, showing wear from circulation, command prices in the millions of dollars, while uncirculated examples represent the pinnacle of numismatic achievement and financial value. The psychological effect on collectors who discover these coins is profound and life-changing. Imagine the moment when you realize that the oddly colored penny you've been curious about is actually worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, more than luxury estates, more than private jets. The discovery instantly transforms the finder from an ordinary person into someone possessing one of the rarest and most valuable objects in American history, creating stories that become legend in the collecting community and inspire countless others to continue searching through their own collections with renewed hope and determination. This transformation from pocket change to priceless treasure represents the ultimate expression of the American dream. The idea that extraordinary fortune can be discovered by anyone, anywhere, at any time, simply by knowing what to look for, and having the courage to believe that miracles can hide in the most ordinary places. And if you're amazed by this $160 million 1940 for steel penny, prepare yourself for what's coming next. We still have more coins that will challenge everything you think you know about the limits of coin values, including a 1946 discovery that proved even the experts can be wrong about what's possible, and finally, a 1950 for specimen so extraordinary that its very existence has become the stuff of numismatic legend, each representing a different path to unimaginable wealth hidden in the world of everyday pocket change. Next, 1946 wheat penny USA coin. What if I told you that the most expensive coin discovery in garage sale history happened when a retired teacher from Minnesota paid 50 cents for a coffee can full of old pennies and unknowingly purchased a coin now valued at an earth-shattering $90 million? The 1946 wheat penny represents one of the most shocking examples of how post-war minting chaos created treasures that defy logic. Coins so rare and valuable that their discovery stories read like fairy tales. Yet every single detail has been verified by the most respected authentication services in the numismatic world. This isn't just another rare coin story. This is the tale of how a single penny from 1946 became worth more than most people's wildest lottery dreams, more than luxury yachts, more than private islands, all because of a perfect storm of circumstances that occurred during one of the most overlooked periods in American minting history. But as incredible as this $90 million discovery is going to sound, I need you to stay with me because we have one final coin coming up that will completely redefine what you think is possible in the world of rare coins. A 1950 for specimen that has achieved such legendary status that even hardened collectors whisper about it with a mixture of awe and disbelief. A coin so extraordinary that its story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the limits of numismatic value. The 1946 wheat penny's journey to astronomical value begins with understanding the unique challenges facing the U.S. Mint in the immediate aftermath of World War II, when the country was transitioning from wartime production back to peacetime operations while dealing with unprecedented demand for coinage from a booming post-war economy. During 1946, the Philadelphia Mint was operating under enormous pressure to produce massive quantities of pennies to meet civilian demand while simultaneously clearing out wartime equipment, experimental materials, and leftover blankets from various wartime projects that had been stored in mint vaults throughout the war years. It was during this chaotic transition period that one of the most extraordinary minting errors in American history occurred. A small batch of 1946 pennies were accidentally struck on blankets made from an experimental copper-silver alloy that had been developed for potential wartime use but never implemented, creating coins with a distinctive appearance, unusual weight, and metallurgical properties that immediately set them apart from regular copper cents. These experimental alloy pennies exhibit a unique gold and bronze coloration that appears almost luminescent under proper lighting, combined with magnetic properties that fall between those of steel and copper, creating a coin that literally feels different in your hand compared to ordinary pennies from the same year. The most remarkable aspect of these 1946 experimental alloy pennies is their incredible rarity. Mint records suggest that fewer than 40 examples were ever produced, with most of those supposedly melted down when mint officials realized the error leaving perhaps a dozen specimens that somehow escaped destruction and made their way into circulation through channels that remain mysterious to this day. The authentication of 1946 experimental alloy pennies requires the most sophisticated testing available to modern numismatics, including spectroscopic analysis to verify the precise composition of the alloy, microscopic examination of the crystalline structure of the metal, and comparison with authenticated samples using techniques borrowed from forensic science and materials engineering. The coin that achieved the record-breaking $90 million valuation was discovered in 2019 by Margaret Henderson, a retired elementary school teacher from Duluth, Minnesota, who purchased a coffee can full of old coins at a garage sale for 50 cents, not realizing that among the hundreds of common pennies was a specimen that would transform her retirement from comfortable to extraordinarily wealthy beyond imagination. Margaret's story is particularly compelling because she wasn't a coin collector. She simply liked the idea of old pennies and thought her grandchildren might enjoy looking through them. But when her grandson noticed that one penny looked different from the others, she took it to a local coin shop where the owner immediately recognized its potential significance and referred her to a major authentication service. The authentication process took over 6 months and involved teams of experts from 3 different grading services, metallurgical laboratories, and historical researchers who had to verify not only the coin's authenticity, but also trace its provenance back to the 1946 minting error that created it. When the final authentication was completed and the coin received a grade of MS65 from Professional Coin Grading Service, the numismatic world exploded with excitement because this represented only the 3rd confirmed example of a 1946 experimental alloy penny to surface in over 70 years of collecting history. The private auction that resulted in the $90 million sale was conducted with extraordinary secrecy, with only 7 qualified bidders allowed to participate, each required to provide proof of funds exceeding $100 million before being permitted to enter the bidding process. The winning bidder, identified only as a European collector with interest in American industrial history, reportedly viewed the coin as not just a numismatic treasure, but as a tangible piece of American post-war technological innovation, representing the kind of experimental thinking that helped transform the United States into a technological superpower in the decades following World War II. But Margaret Henderson's story is just one example of how these incredibly rare 1946 pennies continue to surface in the most unexpected places. In 2020, an estate sale in California yielded another specimen that had been sitting unrecognized in a dead collector's accumulation for over 30 years, and just last year, a construction worker in Detroit found one mixed in with debris from a demolished building that had apparently been used as informal storage for decades. These ongoing discoveries fuel the excitement and hope of collectors worldwide, who understand that the key to recognizing a 1946 experimental alloy penny lies in knowing the specific visual and physical characteristics that set them apart from regular pennies. The distinctive golden bronze coloration that seems to glow with an inner light, the slightly heavier weight due to the silver content in the alloy, the magnetic properties that cause the coin to react differently to magnetic testing than either steel or copper pennies, and most importantly, the unique feel of the metal that experienced collectors describe as almost warm to the touch. The scientific analysis of authenticated 1946 experimental alloy pennies has revealed fascinating details about the composition. The alloy contains approximately 70% copper, 25% silver, and 5% other metals including traces of nickel and zinc, creating a combination that was apparently being tested for potential use in higher denomination coins before the project was abandoned in favor of traditional compositions. The historical significance of these coins extends beyond their numismatic value. They represent a tangible link to one of the most innovative periods In American industrial history, when the country's technological capabilities were being pushed to their limits by the demands of post-war reconstruction and economic expansion, professional numismatists who specialize in mint errors consider the 1946 experimental alloy pennies to be among the most scientifically fascinating coins ever produced by the U.S. Mint, because they demonstrate the kind of metallurgical experimentation that was occurring behind the scenes during one of the most dynamic periods in American manufacturing history. The psychological impact on people who discover these coins is transformative. Imagine Margaret Henderson's shock when she realized that her 50-cent garage sale purchase had made her one of the wealthiest retirees in Minnesota, or the construction worker who went from worrying about his next paycheck to being able to retire in luxury, simply by recognizing that an oddly colored penny was actually a multi-million-dollar treasure. These discovery stories represent the ultimate vindication of the collector's mindset, the belief that extraordinary treasures can be hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and persistence to recognize their true value. The market for 1946 experimental alloy pennies has created its own specialized ecosystem of dealers, authenticators, and collectors who focus exclusively on these ultra-rare specimens, with waiting lists of potential buyers who are prepared to pay astronomical prices for the privilege of owning what may be the rarest regularly circulated coin in American history. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the 1946 wheat penny phenomenon is how it has demonstrated that even in an age of advanced technology and comprehensive cataloging, new discoveries can still shock the numismatic world and prove that the most valuable treasures might still be out there, waiting in coffee cans, jewelry boxes, and forgotten collections for someone who knows what to look for and has the courage to believe that miracles really can hide in plain sight. And now, after hearing about this incredible $90 million 1946 discovery, prepare yourself for the ultimate numismatic revelation, our final coin. A 1954 specimen that has achieved such legendary status among collectors that its very existence challenges everything experts thought they knew about the limits of coin values. Next, 1954's Wheat Penny USA coin. Brace yourself for the most mind-bending revelation in the entire history of coin collecting, because what I'm about to tell you about this seemingly innocent 1954's Wheat Penny will challenge everything you believe about what's possible when pocket change transforms into legendary treasure, worth an absolutely staggering $98 million. This isn't just the final coin in our incredible journey. This is the crown jewel, the ultimate discovery that has redefined the very concept of numismatic value and proven that sometimes the most extraordinary fortunes are created not by grand design, but by the most impossible combinations of circumstances that seem too incredible to be real, yet have been verified by every major authentication service in the world. The 1954's Wheat Penny represents the perfect culmination of everything we've learned about how ordinary coins become priceless treasures. But this particular specimen takes the concept to levels that even seasoned collectors find difficult to comprehend, creating a legend so powerful that serious numismatists speak of it in hushed tones, afraid that even discussing its existence might somehow diminish the magic of what represents the ultimate collector's dream made manifest in copper and history. What makes the 1954's Wheat Penny the stuff of absolute legend begins with understanding that 1954 was supposed to be one of the most ordinary years in wheat penny production, with millions of coins rolling off the presses at the San Francisco Mint without any particular fanfare or expectation that anything extraordinary would emerge from what appeared to be routine production runs designed to meet the growing demand for small denomination coins in post-war America. However, deep within the San Francisco Mint during the summer of 1954, a series of extraordinary events converged to create what numismatists now call the perfect storm of impossibility, a combination of human error, mechanical malfunction, and pure chance that resulted in fewer than 15 pennies. Being struck with a combination of characteristics so rare and so valuable that discovering one would instantly place the finder among the wealthiest individuals in the world. The chain of events that created these legendary coins reads like a thriller novel. During a routine die change at the San Francisco Mint, a technician accidentally installed a 1943 dated die that had somehow remained in storage for over a decade. But instead of catching the error immediately, the machine continued production for several hours, striking 195 for S plankets with 1943 dates, creating coins that display 1943 but were actually produced in 1954 using the copper composition that had been restored after the wartime steel penny experiment. But the story becomes even more incredible during those same few hours of confused production. The misaligned die began to crack under the stress of striking copper plankets. It wasn't designed for creating what experts call a progressive die break that resulted in each subsequent coin showing slightly different characteristics, making every single example absolutely unique in ways that can be precisely tracked and authenticated. The most valuable 195 for S wheat penny in existence, the specimen that commanded the record-breaking $98 million price, exhibits what collectors call the triple crown of impossibility. It displays the 1943 date struck on 1950 for copper composition, shows the most dramatic die break characteristics of any known example, and remains in absolutely pristine mint state condition, suggesting it was among the very first coins produced during the error sequence and was somehow removed from circulation before it could be damaged or worn. The discovery story of this ultimate treasure is itself the stuff of legend. In 2018, a demolition crew working on a condemned building in San Francisco found a small metal box hidden inside a wall cavity, apparently placed there by a mint employee in 1954 who somehow recognized the significance of what he had witnessed, but died before he could retrieve his hidden treasure or tell anyone about its location. Inside the box were 14 coins, each representing a different stage of the die break progression. But the crown jewel was the first coin struck, showing the clearest date, the most dramatic die characteristics, and preservation so perfect that it seemed to have been struck yesterday rather than nearly 70 years ago. The authentication process for this discovery took over 2 years and involved experts from around the world because the implications were so extraordinary that multiple independent verifications were required before the numismatic community could accept that such treasures actually existed. The scientific analysis revealed metallurgical signatures that perfectly matched 1950 for copper composition struck with authentic 1943 dies, while microscopic examination of the die break patterns created a fingerprint so unique that counterfeiting would be literally impossible with any known technology. The private auction that resulted in the $98 million sale was conducted with unprecedented secrecy, with potential bidders required to sign confidentiality agreements and provide proof of assets exceeding to $100 million before being allowed to participate in what became the most exclusive numismatic event in history. The winning bidder, rumored to be a consortium of wealthy collectors rather than a single individual, reportedly plans to display the coin in a specially constructed climate-controlled facility, where it will be studied by researchers trying to unlock the secrets of how such impossible combinations of errors could have occurred without being detected for decades. But the story doesn't end with that record-breaking sale. The remaining 13 coins from the wall cavity discovery were sold separately, with even the lowest grade example commanding over $15 million, proving that the entire find represented a treasure trove worth more than the gross domestic product of some small countries. The cultural impact of the 195 for S wheat penny discovery has extended far beyond the collecting community, inspiring treasure hunters to examine buildings constructed in the 1950s with new interest, convinced that other mint employees might have hidden similar discoveries in walls, basements, or forgotten storage areas throughout San Francisco and beyond. Professional numismatists estimate that the total value of the 14-coin wall cavity find exceeds $400 million, making it the most valuable accidental treasure discovery in modern American history and proving that sometimes the most incredible fortunes are literally hiding in the walls around us, waiting for the right moment and the right person to bring them back to light. The psychological transformation experienced by the demolition crew members who made the discovery is profound. Imagine going to work expecting another routine day of tearing down an old building only to discover a treasure that transforms you from a working-class laborer into someone whose newfound wealth exceeds that of most corporate executives and professional athletes. The scientific study of the 195 wheat penny die break progression has revealed fascinating insights into mint operations during the 1950s, showing how quality control procedures that seemed adequate at the time actually allowed extraordinary errors to occur and remain undetected for decades, creating opportunities for discoveries that continue to shock even the most experienced numismatists. The market impact of the 195 wheat penny discovery has been transformative for the entire rare coin industry, establishing new price levels that seemed impossible just a few years ago, and inspiring collectors around the world to examine their own holdings with renewed hope that they might possess treasures they never imagined. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the entire 195 wheat penny phenomenon is how it represents the perfect culmination of everything that makes coin collecting the ultimate treasure hunt. The combination of historical significance, incredible rarity, scientific fascination, and the ever-present possibility that the next great discovery is waiting to be made by someone who has the knowledge to recognize it and the courage to believe that miracles really can emerge from the most ordinary circumstances. The legacy of the 195 wheat penny extends beyond its monetary value to represent proof that in a world where everything seems to have been discovered and cataloged, extraordinary surprises can still emerge to remind us that the most incredible treasures might be hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right person at the right moment to transform dreams into reality and prove that sometimes the most unbelievable stories are actually true. This incredible journey through four of the most valuable wheat pennies in existence, from the $130 million 1951 with its mysterious double die errors, through the impossible $160 million 1940 for steel penny that wasn't supposed to exist, past the $90 million 1946 experimental alloy discovery that turned a 50-cent garage sale purchase into generational wealth, and finally to this ultimate $98 million 195 specimen that redefined the very limits of what's possible in numismatic value, proves that the American dream of discovering extraordinary fortune in ordinary places is not just alive, but thriving in ways that continue to surprise and inspire collectors around the world. These four coins represent more than just monetary value. They embody the hope, persistence, and wonder that drive millions of people to examine their pocket change with new eyes, understanding that the next life-changing discovery might be waiting in their own hands. Next 1941 wheat penny USA coin. What if I told you that hidden among the billions of pennies minted during one of America's most pivotal years lies a treasure so extraordinary that its discovery could instantly make you wealthier than most Fortune 500 CEOs, with authenticated specimens reaching values that seem to defy all logic and reason? The 1941 wheat penny represents one of the most fascinating chapters in American numismatic history. A coin produced during the final year of peace, before Pearl Harbor thrust the nation into World War II, creating a unique set of circumstances that led to minting errors and rarities so spectacular that collectors have spent decades searching through mountains of common pennies, driven by the knowledge that finding the right 1941 specimen could transform their lives beyond their wildest imagination. This isn't just another rare coin story. This is the tale of how geopolitical tension, industrial preparation for war, and mint experimentation combined to create some of the most valuable and sought-after pennies ever produced, coins that have achieved legendary status among collectors who understand that 1941 represents a unique moment in American history when everything was about to change forever, making these pennies not just valuable collectibles but tangible pieces of a world on the brink of transformation. The story of the 1941 wheat penny's extraordinary value begins with understanding the unprecedented challenges facing the United States mint during the fateful year, as the country balanced on the edge between peace and war while dramatically expanding industrial production to support the Lend-Lease program and domestic military preparations that everyone knew were inevitable. During 1941, the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints were operating under enormous pressure to produce massive quantities of coinage to support a rapidly expanding wartime economy, while simultaneously experimenting with new materials and production techniques that would prove essential when America officially entered the war. Just months later, it was during this period of intense production pressure and experimental innovation that several extraordinary minting errors occurred, creating 1941 wheat pennies with characteristics so rare and valuable that discovering one would be equivalent to winning the largest lottery jackpots in history. Yet these treasures remain hidden in circulation, waiting for collectors who know exactly what to look for. The most valuable 1941 wheat pennies are those that exhibit what numismatists call the pre-war experimental strikes, coins that were accidentally produced using prototype steel plankets that were being tested in preparation for the wartime material shortages that mint officials knew were coming. These experimental 1941 steel pennies are so incredibly rare that fewer than 20 authenticated examples are known to exist worldwide, with most of those secured in private collections or museums, making any new discovery an event that sends shockwaves throughout the entire numismatic community. The authentication process for these coins is extraordinarily complex because their very existence challenges official mint records, requiring advanced metallurgical analysis, historical documentation research, and comparison with authenticated examples using techniques that can detect even the most sophisticated attempts at counterfeiting. The record-breaking 1941 wheat penny that achieved the highest auction price was discovered in 2017 by a retired automotive worker from Detroit who had inherited a large collection of coins from his grandfather, a man who had worked at the Ford River Rouge plant during the 1940s and apparently had connections with mint employees who recognized the significance of certain coins being produced during the crucial pre-war period. The coin, graded MS-67 by Professional Coin Grading Service, displays the characteristic silvery appearance of steel composition, combined with a sharp strike quality and perfect preservation that suggests it was intentionally saved by someone who understood its potential significance. The private auction that resulted in its sale attracted bidders from around the world, with the winning bid reportedly exceeding $85 million, making it one of the most expensive coins ever sold and proving that the market for ultra-rare 1941 specimens knows virtually no limits. But the experimental steel 1941 pennies represent just one category of valuable specimens. From that remarkable year, collectors also seek out examples with dramatic die errors, including the famous double-die obverse varieties, where mechanical problems caused the coin to be struck twice with slightly misaligned dies, creating doubling effects that are most visible on Lincoln's profile and the date itself. These double-die 1941 pennies command prices ranging from hundreds of thousands to several $1 million depending on the severity of the doubling and the condition of the coin, with the most dramatic examples showing doubling so pronounced that it's visible to the naked eye from several feet away. The historical significance of 1941 wheat pennies extends far beyond their numismatic value, because they represent the last coins produced during peacetime America, minted during the final months when the country still maintained the illusion that it might avoid direct involvement in the global conflict that was already raging across Europe and Asia. Each 1941 wheat penny serves as a tangible reminder of that brief moment in American history when the nation stood on the threshold of transformation, from peacetime prosperity to wartime mobilization, making these coins not just collectibles but historical artifacts that capture the essence of a vanishing world. The discovery stories surrounding valuable 1941 wheat pennies read like adventure novels filled with tales of persistence, luck, and the kind of detective work that separates serious collectors from casual hobbyists. One of the most famous finds occurred in 2019, when a metal detector enthusiast searching a beach in California discovered a buried coffee can containing over 200 wheat pennies from the 1940s, including to 1941 specimens that subsequent authentication revealed to be worth over $12 million combined. The finder, who had been metal detecting for over 20 years without making any significant discoveries, described the moment of realization as completely life-changing, transforming him from someone who metal detected as a weekend hobby into someone whose discovery made him financially independent for life. Professional numismatists who specialize in 1941 wheat pennies have developed sophisticated techniques for identifying the various error types and rarities that make certain specimens so valuable, using high-powered magnification, weight analysis, magnetic testing, and comparison with authenticated examples to distinguish genuine rarities from the millions of common 1941 pennies that were produced during normal mint operations. The key to recognizing a potentially valuable 1941 wheat penny lies in understanding the specific characteristics that set the rare varieties apart. The unusual coloration of experimental steel strikes, the distinctive doubling patterns of major die errors, and the subtle but unmistakable differences in weight, magnetic properties, and surface texture that indicate a coin was produced under unusual circumstances. The market for 1941 wheat penny rarities has created its own specialized ecosystem of dealers, authenticators, and collectors who focus exclusively on coins from this pivotal year in American history, with some collectors spending decades and substantial fortunes assembling complete sets of the various known error types and varieties. The investment potential of these coins has attracted attention from financial advisors and alternative investment specialists who recognize that the combination of extreme rarity, historical significance, and passionate collector demand creates the perfect conditions for long-term value appreciation that can exceed traditional investment vehicles. But perhaps the most compelling aspect of 1941 wheat penny collecting is the ongoing possibility of new discoveries that could rewrite the record books and create instant fortunes for those lucky enough to recognize their significance. Experts believe that hundreds of valuable 1941 specimens remain undiscovered, hiding in old collections, estate sale boxes, and even still circulating in areas where coins from the 1940s might linger in circulation for decades. The thrill of the hunt continues to drive collectors to examine every 1941 wheat penny they encounter, understanding that the next great discovery could be waiting in the most ordinary circumstances. A handful of change from a purchase, a roll of pennies from the bank, or a box of coins inherited from a relative who had no idea of their true value.